Hello there friends, Alan here. Welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. Well, actually this was supposed to originally be a Generation Tech Shorts video, but then it kind of turned into this longer form discussion about how wealthy people can hide their money in the Star Wars galaxy, because you guys know I love geeking out about the economic, social, and political aspects of Star Wars and comparing it to our own crazy world. And so naturally, I really love this side plot with Mon Mothma, who's trying to gain access to her family funds, which are now being closely watched by the Empire, the Emperor's own inner circle, and the ISB, especially after the Aldhani raid. Mon wants to essentially make that money disappear and reappear in the hands of Luthen Rael.
If you can't deliver, I need to know.
Do you think I'm not trying?
I never think that. But I need to start planning if you're no longer coming through for us.
The money's there.
X-Wings, proton torpedoes, detonators, they all cost a lot of cash. And so Mon Mothma wanted to secretly fund this movement, just like how Leia helped all of those Alderaanian ships disappear into rebel hands on Lothal. And the way the Chandrillan senator has been doing that up until her meeting with Tay was through charitable organizations that she transferred her funds into. These funds would then disappear either through some falsified accounting records or be transferred to other rebel-backed companies that were beneficiaries of this charity. I mean, this is the dirty truth that most people don't learn about the financial system in Star Wars. There's tons of borderline illegal shenanigans happening and even more things that fall into the gray area. But the issue is regulatory agencies just don't have the manpower to go after everything. And it's not the people who are collecting salaries and, have W-2s from a normal job. These are people with a lot of money, usually people who own their own businesses. People kind of like Mon Mothma, actually. I mean, up until now, what she's been doing is actually really sketchy.
They're watching me now.
They're watching everyone.
This is different. They're everywhere. There's a new spy every day at the Senate. I visit the bank. They're all new faces.
And so it's kind of smart that she's contacting Tay Kolma, the head of the Chandrillan financial institution Bank Kolma. She wants him to serve as the chair of her new charitable organization. Someone like Tay Kolma can use his understanding of the financial system and all of its tricks and shortcuts to expedite the distribution of Mon Mothma's money. He basically has the resources of an entire bank, all of their staff, all of their connections and assets, and all sorts of financial products that can be used for this effort. Tay Kolma strikes me as what you would call a lawful good capitalist. And yes, all of you precious kids in college right now learning very radical things from your professor, yes, there is such a thing. Tay Kolma is the kind of guy who understands that Emperor Palpatine's continuous overreach into the financial system will lead to great instability in that system, which of course will hurt everyone. At the end of the day, businesses depend on these systems, and they are the ones who hire the majority of people. But then just a few days later, Tay comes back with some bad news.
I wish I had better news.
I'm about to get very busy.
The new banking regulations are making life difficult.
Difficult or impossible?
I don't know. They're staffing up Imperial auditors by the week. We'll have to see where they place them.
This is an interesting line here. It sounds like the Imperial financial system is not all that different from the American one. There are plenty of rules and guidelines, specific tax reduction forms for specific special interests, and an assortment of retroactive policies placed after massive fraud and scandals expose issues with the system. But for the most part, if you're smart enough, you can still find your way around the taxes and regulation and even take advantage of certain tax schemes or special accounts and organizational structures to decrease your overall tax payment. That is until the auditors take a closer look at what you're doing.
How much trouble am I in?
There's no trouble at all unless they scan the accounts.
But that's coming.
The Empire's new regulations, made without Senate consultation, I might add, are as cumbersome as they are avoidable.
Now, Davos here is speaking the truth. Just like in warfare, in the financial world, no regulation, no defense will be able to hold back smart individuals who can find their ways around the system with increasingly ingenious and, at times, messed up financial schemes. That's sort of what the Democrats don't understand. In this country, they come from academia and law firms, not the financial system or corporate world. They see the corruption and the inequality, so they levy ineffective taxes and regulations that actually just end up hurting smaller businesses, while larger companies with access to elite banking services and lawyers, individuals like Davos, manage to succeed and circumvent these regulations. What the Republicans don't understand is if they don't find a way to crack down on the excesses of capitalism, the whole system might come crashing down from imbalance as the consumer middle class is getting crushed year after year, recession after recession. Once the majority in America no longer trust the institutions that basically protect our country from chaos and begin electing demagogues and populist strongmen into power.
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
Well, at that point, no one wins. As usual, one side has the right idea and the other side has the skills to execute. If only we could work together more. There would be far less Davoses in our financial system and far more Tays. Now, what is dangerous in the situation here is the fact that the Empire has hired more auditors, and it sounds like they'll be targeting Mon Mothma's foundation directly. When you have such a complicated tax code, which I'm sure the Empire has, then anyone who owns their own business could potentially be committing tax fraud without even knowing it at times. It's actually quite common. You miss a deduction here, give your employee a Hammerhead Corvette that isn't declared as income, relatable stuff like that. When the tax code has so many great lines and becomes so convoluted that you have an entire profession of people devoted to deciphering it, as like some Warhammer 40k Adeptus Mechanicus nonsense, then basically the system becomes so vague that governments can basically accuse anyone of tax fraud or tax evasion and use that as a means to get rid of their political enemies. So it might look bad if Mon Mothma just disappeared in the middle of her speech about Gorman's sovereignty, but what if they caught her cheating on her taxes, or better yet, funneling money directly to terrorist organizations? Suddenly throwing her in prison might be something the public supports. Now, Davo Sculdun, who is also a banker, but the kind who's more likely to run shell companies, then suggests the following.
We've reached a scale in our holdings that permits a great variety of transactions to be bundled in ways that make outside observation impossible.
So essentially what Davos is talking about here is forming a large shell company. In our own world, you find countries with more lax financial laws and favorable tax environments, generally small islands that don't mind attracting illicit funds to their shores. In Star Wars, you look for less regulated regions of the galaxy like the corporate sector or the free trade zone during the Republic era. These shell companies, once constructed, don't make anything or employ anyone. They usually are run by agents like Davos, one single person, and they're designed to basically hold capital, sometimes to start new businesses and startups, or sometimes just to basically hide money, because this money might enjoy a tax-free status in that local area. Now, in Mon Mothma's case, these regions probably don't ask many questions about where the money is coming from and where it's going as well, which makes transferring that money into rebel hands a lot easier. It's essentially a blind spot where Imperial regulators don't have jurisdiction, and so they can't figure out what's going on. How long that will last, though, who knows? Palpatine has a tendency to basically take over every system and then bring it beneath the Empire's growing government. But when Davos begins talking about essentially creating new financial products and bundling up multiple transactions, it kind of reminded me of those wonderful financial products that Wall Street created when they bundled up a bunch of ridiculously high-risk mortgages together and made it look like a solid investment by giving it a nonsense AAA rating.
We've reached a scale in our holdings that permits a great variety of transactions to be bundled in ways that make outside observation impossible.
No one ever really looked inside of those bundles. Everyone was too busy making money off of it, including people who put state pensions and other kind of crazy things in them, which is why we suffered from one of the biggest recessions in modern history. It's kind of interesting that Tony Gilroy wrote these lines down for Davos. Again, nothing he does is without purpose, so perhaps Tony Gilroy does have some politics after all that's very visible here. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this explanation of how Mon Mothma is going to launder her money to the rebellion. The fact that I'm even saying those words has gotten me very happy. Well guys, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification button down below, and don't forget to check out our second channel, Generation Shorts. See you next time.